Hey, good morning. So it is around 10 something right now, and I've already started my day with a lot of things. So I'm really happy, that I was able to, get all the stuff out of the way. There are still like more things that I like to do. For example, I think I mentioned that, like my spray paints, I had to kind of like see which ones are still working. But I wanted to talk about something specific. Basically, I'm kind of like cutting some stuff out of my life. So since October, there's this, like YouTube channel and podcast, and then like there was this TV show from December, and basically I've been very invested in both. And at first, like that's nice, it can be an anchor. I can be excited about like what's going to happen and all of that. But I kind of realized that it got to a point where I'm too obsessed, and it's kind of like getting in the way of like me doing things and kind of like just having best life. This all happened, culminated yesterday, because basically I was because as I said, I've been very consumed by these things. So for example, the TV show, like I'm so invested. I'm watching the TV show. I'm watching all the interviews that they have with the cast, with the director, with the creator, with like even like the music guy, like all the different interviews. I'm watching all of them. And there are also like these compilations, these edits, the shorts, following like the actors and all that. And basically I realized that I'm looking forward to that. But I feel like, for example, it's just like a short. It's not that it takes like too much time, because it kind of doesn't, but it was about how it made me feel. So I'm kind of right now, I am in this moment where it seems that I was like going uphill. I was getting a little manic, so we changed the medication yesterday, and we're gonna keep watching. I had to update my doctor and all that. So basically what I'm saying that is because like when you're a little manic, like irritability is one of like the things that happens. Like you get angrier easier, and it's not just like anger, it's almost like a fury. And basically I kind of like I was watching the short, and then I saw we've seen some comments, because whenever something gets big, very quickly there's a lot of love, but there's also like a lot of like dissent. And I kind of like read some comments that were kind of like putting that one like the actor, which like it is a show with two leads. And I do have a favorite. There's nothing wrong with having a favorite. Like I'm not disparaging the other one. I still appreciate, but there is one that I'm kind of like keeping up more with, like what this person is doing. And yeah, so basically there were some comments disparaging them, and like they got me like really angry. And I was like, I mean, like it's unfair, some of the comments, so like it's normal for you to have a reaction. But I realized that it was a little bit too much. I'm too invested, so I have decided to kind of like cut short. And also like the podcast that I mentioned, I was watching things multiple times, and I was starting to get invested, emotionally invested. For example, like if I see that one of the podcast is not doing as well, like that there is some issue, that was kind of like affecting me. And it was like, so I basically kind of like realized, this is too much. I'm too invested, and I'd rather focus on things in my life. And I'm grateful for both of this, because they brought me joy. They comforted me. Like there were things that aggregated and they added to my life. But I think it's time for me to part ways. So I kind of like subscribed from the YouTube channel. I followed the podcast, and I've been kind of like, because my recommendations on YouTube, for example, they're very centered around like this. These two things. So basically, I've been kind of like training my algorithm, to kind of like send to show me other stuff. And I've been kind of like slowly, asking like for certain channels, certain things not to be, sent to me. So yeah, so I'm kind of like breaking free, and it feels good. Like it feels like it was about time. And I mean, this show, like there's going to be a second season, so like when it happens, I'll get invested again. But from now to then, like I'm kind of over that. But yeah, so that is basically kind of like something that happened yesterday. I was like, okay, and I'm really happy and proud of myself that I was able to like move past that, to kind of like walk away. And it's been kind of like easier than I expected, particularly considering how historically like I struggled to get kind of I get rid of some of like my obsessions. So like this is working out greatly, and it's been really good for my mental health. Because as I said, that those things were affecting me, and like I don't want that for me. But yeah, so today we're gonna have a friend come over, a friend of my mom, which I can also say that's my friend too, and we're gonna catch up. And after lunch, I'm going there. There's like a hair salon across the street, and she the like the main hairdresser, she is kind of like testing a new procedure, and she asked if I wanted to subject to it, and then I will. I don't know what it is, what it does, but she asked me to kind of like wash my hair in the morning and then go there after lunch. So there's going to be that. I'm also thinking about like my puzzles, assembling my puzzles, and I mean they're puzzles, but like I'm assembling just one at the moment. So I'm thinking of like doing that, and what else? And I'm probably going to tidy up more things because I'm full of energy, and there's always something to clean up, to tidy up, and so yeah, I'm going to probably do more of that. I'm gonna try to write naturally, but I don't think that I'll succeed. I don't think that I'm in the mindset yet. But yeah, but something I want to talk about as well is the fact that basically I'm like I think I'm seeing a lot of maturity in the way that I have been doing things, the way that I have been feeling things, and like not only like it is good, I mean, to be more mature, but also like I think I've been liking this, I've been needing this, to have like just kind of like step up and be like more present in my life. And as I said, I've been able to kind of like put things away, not in a suppressive type of way, but in a kind of like this journey came to an end, as I talk of the TV show and podcast. And yeah, so for example, and also I'm kind of like good at developing strategies, like that's been kind of like something that really changed how I live. So for example, like I was very energetic yesterday, I was full of energy and all that. So and I mean it was less than the day before, so like that's good, I'm getting back to normal. But basically I decided to go back to watching mindfulness meditations, and I watched a bunch, and it really helped, it really worked. Like I was able to relax and go to bed and sleep. I had a good night of sleep, and I woke up, I'm still sleeping less, so I woke up right early. But as I said, like I've already done a lot of things, so even though like it is still the morning, it feels like I've accomplished a lot. But yeah, but like being able to create strategies, they're not like me kind of like walking to the end of my life. Like it's very it's kind of like what I've been needing. As I said, like I needed this change to take place for me to kind of like really live my life in a healthy way. So yeah, I'm having this spirit right now that like everything, it has a solution, like I don't have to despair. So that is interesting, and also helpful on a daily basis. I'm not looking around and feeling yeah, I'm feeling like way less despair basically. Like I'm like more grounded, more centered, and all of these things, they kind of like are contributing to me having better quality of life. So I'm happy about this, because things, they don't feel insurmountable anymore. They feel as I said, like I feel like there's a strategy, there's something I can do about it, even if I don't know right away. I just have to think about it, like cook, and then I come up with a solution or something. So yeah, so that is being pretty good. I hope that this continues. Naturally right now I'm like a little up here, so it's easier for me to to do things more excited and more feeling better about myself. But I do think that there will continuity to this, even when I'm not like hypomanic, manic, or whatever. Like I still think that it's going to work out. So I'm happy about that. But yeah, something else that I wanted to talk about is the fantasies. I think I mentioned that like they were happening, but they were still like not getting in the way. And so far I think so, but I also kind of like came to the conclusion that these fantasies, they are kind of like the reason why I can write, because my mind wants to create, but it wants to create stories like in this fantasy, it doesn't create like for my novel. So I kind of like need to get rid of it. Sometimes the way to go about this is you have to kind of like exhaust all the possibilities in that fantasy, like, and then you kind of like you're done with it, so you can move on to the next thing. And there's a transition period, because you get to a point where it's kind of like you've had everything, you think about everything, and then you kind of move on, but like new ideas can come in, and get yeah, they can kind of like pop up in your head, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like it's not nice, because what, I'm trying to move on, and I keep being dragged back. But yeah, but basically, this fantasy is one specific fantasy that I've been having. Like that one is getting in the way. I'm very unhappy about the fact that I'm so invested. But as I mentioned yesterday, like there's a reason why I'm having this fantasy, and I kind of like realized that it was kind of like cope of things. And I think that like I said, the podcast and the TV show, they were adding to my like me not feeling well. So like one of the reasons why I was fantasizing is kind of like counter that. So like now that I'm pushing it away, I think that things are going to work out better. Yeah. So also something that I was thinking, because in terms of like anchors, it's always good for you to have, the more the merrier, like the more the better. Like anchors. And like as I mentioned before, like I realizing that tattoos are kind of like an anchor for me. And usually like I save up money the whole year so I can go and get my tattoos, usually in January. But basically what I've been kind of like what I've been thinking about is like that is like really far away. That's like a year away. And I would like something sooner. So I'm thinking that, because usually I get two, like 1 week's time. So like instead of like getting both in January, maybe I will get one in like July or something, and then and then the other one in January. I think that might be good for me and might help with, because it's something that is kind of like gratification, and that's kind of good. And also July, August, I'm like usually not swimming because the water is a little too cold. So like I could do that. That is like an ideal period of time. But so just a little something that came to me was like, okay, here's to making like things stick better, and just life better. But yeah, so all things considered, I'm doing pretty well. Like I'm very involved in my life. I'm very like present. I'm like very grounded, as I said. I'm like surrounding myself with things that kind of like directly contribute to like my well-being, to my life, focusing on myself basically, which is kind of like, it's a paradoxical, because I've always focused myself too much. Like I've always been so self-interested, is that a word? But yeah, so like I'm always thinking about myself, but what like I'm thinking myself right now, like, but in a healthier way. So it's not just like indulging in the things that are not that good for me. So it's like I'm focusing on myself, and in a healthy way, in a way that, and I think that this is leading to some level of fulfillment, and I'm just doing better, because it's kind of like a snowball. Like you start focusing, and then it becomes a habit, at some point, which is actually kind of like what I need. I need some of like the good, habits that I have to, become kind of like part of like my repertoire, part of like my life. I want them to be kind of like almost automatic. Like I want very, to kind of like just default to, like these habits. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up right now. Yes, but happy to be here, happy to be alive, happy with my life, and like that is kind of like a change for me. So just that. Bye.